everyone, and welcome to our first ever virtual State of the Parish. Normally, in years past, the pastor would get up at the end of Mass the weekend that we let loose the annual report, which we mailed home to you, but given COVID and that a lot of our viewers are already online watching our virtual Masses, I figured I would save some time and be able to also to go a little more in depth than what I'm normally able to do at the end of Mass when people are looking to get home to breakfast and their coffee and or out to dinner if it's Saturday evening. Not in a restaurant right now, but still all the same to get home. So I figured doing a virtual State of the Parish was better for our parish, and it allows me to get a little deeper into how we did in the last fiscal year. So hopefully by now, today's December 7th as I'm filming this, hopefully you received our annual report in the mail, which outlines, as a little letter written by me, as well as all of our financial information. If you did not receive the annual report in the mail, you can look at it online on our parish website to see the whole report. Our fiscal year here at, well, not just for St. Edward, but for the entire Archdiocese of Chicago, runs from July 1st through June 30th over 2 calendar years, right? So this last fiscal year was July 1st of 2019, which was my first day as your pastor, through June 30th of 2020. And so everything in the report normally focuses on stuff that happened within that year. Although in our report this year, we focus a little more on the pandemic and things that we had to do because of the pandemic, which some of it happened in the new fiscal year that we're currently in, that started July 1st of 2020 and will run through June 30th of 2022. But it was important information to share. None of that were expenditures that we made in the new fiscal year. They were all made then, but some of the points we made, they're carrying into this new fiscal year, which I will explain in this video. So first I thought we would take time to talk about the ministries and the work that we accomplished last fiscal year, and then get into some of the capital projects, the pandemic, and kind of moving forward into the future. So first look at our ministries and our service work. So in July of 2019, our youth ministry took our second mission trip to Dallas, Texas. So our first year of doing mission trips, we went to Gary, Indiana, which wasn't very far. It was a nice dipping of our toe into traveling for mission trips. And last summer of July 2019, which is the beginning of our fiscal year, we went to Dallas, Texas, which was a great experience. Where 9 or 10 of our teenagers, it's hard to remember now, went down to Dallas, and we worked in a women's shelter with some children and did a lot of painting and housework for them, which was a great experience. In terms of faith formation, we welcomed Totus Tuus back for our third year, I think, in a row of offering Totus Tuus, which is basically a summer faith camp for our children. From grades entering first grade, so recent kindergarten graduates, all the way through high school students. And so Totus Tuus comes in the summer, so they were here in July 2019 as well. Our family faith formation kicked off in a new year last year with 40 families, so our family faith formation program is slowly growing. We hosted our second St. Nicholas party in Unity Hall. Our confirmation and First Holy Communion classes did have to move their sacrament celebrations into this current fiscal year. And so that's why when you look at the annual report, and on the one side next to my letter, it has all the sacraments that were celebrated and other information like that. You'll see zeros for confirmation and First Holy Communion. Our baptisms are a little lower as well because we had to postpone those sacraments until we were allowed to reopen after the shelter-in-place orders. Some other things that happened within the fiscal year that help us out as a parish were our fundraisers, our Harvest Bash, and Pig Roast. We had our Chili Cook-Off again last year. We started a bingo that was run mainly by our school families that took charge of that fundraiser. And then as we got more into the pandemic, our Springfield Dominican sisters made the very difficult decision of moving out of their convent home that they lived in for over 100 years. Not the sisters that moved out, but the Springfield Dominicans. That was their convent since it was built. While the building and the property belonged to the parish, but that was their home for over 100 years. And so they made the difficult decision to move out, as the stairs are a lot for them. It was a big building for just 5 sisters that lived there, and so they moved to different places. So we definitely missed them. Our men's group then volunteered after the sisters moved out to kind of clean out the place, and we are trying to get it ready for hopefully another group to rent someday soon to bring in some more revenue for the parish. Our youth group and men's group had used it for a few prayer evenings and days when we were able to meet in person. We started a new garden ministry this year, which was awesome. Members of the parish who enjoy using their green thumbs to make our parish more beautiful, they got right to work, and the front of our church looks beautiful. The flower pots in front of our school, the front of the convent was worked on. A lot of our green areas, especially like in front of the Dominican Learning Center as well, they just look so much more beautiful and vibrant now that we have this new garden ministry. So I'm very grateful to all those volunteers that stepped up and help us to beautify our campus. And last but not least, we've remained part of the Mundelein Seminary Tolton Teaching Parish program. And so we have seminarians that come and help us out. This year we have our same seminarian that we had the last few years, Seth Arnold. Seth is a seminarian for the Diocese of Wichita, Kansas. And Seth has been with us since he came to Mundelein 3 years ago. Hopefully, God willing, Seth will be ordained a deacon this coming May for his diocese, and he'll return to us next year as a deacon before being ordained a priest in June, or May or June of 2022. Yeah, okay. It's hard to think last year, this year, next year, and just the way that 2020 has gone. Forgive my brain. Seth will be ordained a priest in May or June of 2022, and then he'll serve as a priest in his diocese. So we're happy to have Seth with us, and our own son of the parish, Martin Nyberg. While he doesn't come here regularly, he helps out. Actually, he's been assigned to Holy Name Cathedral, but Martin on breaks comes and lives with us and helps serve and do different things around the parish. So we're very grateful to be part of that awesome program that brings seminarians to the parishes so they can learn what parish life looks like and what parish priests do on a daily basis. Something I wish I had when I was in the seminary. So now I'd like to talk about the pandemic and how COVID-19 and the pandemic and all that has impacted our life here at St. Edward. So first, as we just talked about seminarians, when the pandemic and the shelter-in-place orders began, Mundelein Seminary, also like every other university and place around the country, they shut down and asked the seminarians to return to their home dioceses to complete their classwork online. And so we were fortunate enough to have 4 of our Chicago seminarians move into St. Edward, and they lived out the quarantine here in our rectory, which was great. We had our own Martin Nyberg. We also had Juan Vargas, Tim Berryhill, and Tom Leah, who used to serve through the Teaching Parish program here at St. Edward. It was great to have them. They helped us with serving at Masses, especially for the Triduum and Easter. They helped with different things around the house, which was great. They cooked a couple nights a week, so I gave Father Jim some time off and continued to feed Father Joe and myself. We do not cook. We just receive from the great gift of others cooking. But they also led the Marian Parish consecration videos that we still have posted on our YouTube page, so you can do that at any point that you would like. And they helped us in a lot of other different ways, especially with live streaming our masses. So it was great to have those seminarians with us, not only to help our own sanity through the sheltering in place, but also to help our parish remain vibrant and to reach out and communicate with you, our parishioners, on the internet and doing our live stream ministries. Speaking of our live stream ministry, it was because of the seminarians and their help that we were able to start immediately live streaming our masses. and bringing Mass daily, every day, online through Facebook and YouTube. I don't know if you remember, but back in March and April, we were doing a big push to increase our YouTube subscribers so that we could live stream on YouTube. And parishioners reached out to friends and family across the globe, really. We even have people in Slovenia watching our Masses, which is awesome. I think we even had a parishioner's family in Germany even watching our Masses, which is great. And so people really helped us to increase those subscribers so we could live stream Mass to both YouTube and Facebook. And the seminarians were very helpful in getting that started. And then once the seminarians left, as the world started to slowly open back up, the seminarians left our parish. We had one stay with us throughout the summer, Juan Vargas, who was a great help in getting our reopening going, but also helped us to start our live stream ministry of a group of about 7 parishioners who now every day show up and they live stream all of our services. They even do funerals and weddings so that people who can't come because of the pandemic and sickness and just staying healthy, so that they can still receive the sacraments virtually and spiritually until they can join us in person. And so I'm very grateful to all those parishioners who made that possible. We also had to invest then, too, into a live stream system. That's also outlined in our annual report that you could see online. Certainly not a cheap thing, but necessary so that we can... We are one of the few parishes that live stream Mass daily. Many are doing Sunday Masses, but I think we still are one of the few that are doing Mass every single day, live streaming for our parishioners. To show the reach even of our live stream, we have alumni and former parishioners. I've heard from some in Oklahoma, even Colorado and Florida that have found us through social media and online, and they're joining us. They're able to pray again in their old home parish or their former home parish, which is just an awesome thing that we can have to continue to spread God's love and to evangelize and also to reconnect with parishioners both near and far. It's just awesome. As the sheltering in place came to a close and we started to slowly reopen society again, we were one of the first parishes to open our church on the first day that we could, on May 23rd, and we began celebrating Masses in public on June 15th. All thanks to the efforts of many volunteers who came and disinfected and cleaned and prepared our church to welcome visitors safely, which we have continued to do. We haven't had a single person contract the virus or get sick here in our parish or in our school. And that is something we are very, very proud of. That shows that our guidelines and the things that we're doing are working. They are keeping people safe. No one has gotten sick on our campus, on either our church, in our school, in our convent, nothing. And we've had youth ministry back in person, men's groups met in person, the women's groups met in person, our Legion of Mary have met in person, the Theology and Cigars, the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, all these groups that have been meeting in person before we started seeing a rise in cases in the state. None of them got sick here at St. Edward. We've had to stop meeting in person just to keep people safe in general, but everything is working. And so we're very, very proud of that, and we're proud of you and happy that you've all remained flexible enough to follow the guidelines, to keep yourselves safe, as well as our other parishioners, especially the wearing masks in church and on our campus at all times, to sanitize and wash your hands regularly, and to keep social distance, especially in our church. We're very, very grateful to all of you for doing that. And so last but not least, something that's important for us to cover in the annual report is a part of the CARES Act that was passed by the government during the pandemic that gave different types of relief and aid to Americans. One of them was the famous stimulus checks that we all received, but it was also the Small Business Administration's Payroll Protection Program, or we call it the PPP Loan Forgiveness Program. So that was passed by the government to help small businesses keep their employees on staff and paid through the pandemic, which helped taxpayers in that those people weren't unemployed or able to receive unemployment money that was then raised up to an extra $600 a week that would help those who didn't have any jobs. So we were able to keep our employees and to pay them what we had always been paying them. So This was huge because we never once let go or furloughed any employee here at St. Edward. And that's from the after-school care part-time employees that work in our school all the way through our full-time salaried employees. Nobody lost their job or were paid a dime less than they would have been paid if they were doing their regular job. And that is huge. It's money that was owed them, and they received it, large part thanks to the CARES Act that was passed and the monies that we received. And so we outline a lot of that in our letter and in the annual report. What's going to be a little confusing is that the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they changed the guidelines of the use of that money as they were giving it out. So at first, it was only meant to cover 8 weeks of payroll, of health benefits, and of utilities. And they changed it from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. And so because of that, the Archdiocese asked parishes to take whatever monies we were given and to put that into a liability account and to account for the use of the money in the next fiscal year, or the current fiscal year that we're in now. So even though we received the money in May of 2020, which would be the last fiscal year, the fiscal year we reported on in this annual report, the diocese is asking us to report how the money was spent in the current fiscal year, because those 24 weeks would bring us into the new fiscal year. So these monies are being spent over a period of 2 fiscal years. The Archdiocese wants us to report on it in this current fiscal year of 2020 to 2021. So it gets confusing because you'll see the money in a liability account within the annual report. You'll see the $300 and some odd thousand that we were given, but we won't be spending. We spent some of it in the last fiscal year, but we'll be spending all of it now. And so we'll report on that in the upcoming annual report. So it's going to be a little confusing in how we're reporting it, but it's what the Archdiocese has asked us to do, and we're required to follow what the Archdiocese asks of us. So a little confusing, but that money helped us to continue to pay all of our employees. And when we saw a loss in our revenue, we were down in expenses as well. But this money helped us to make up for the loss in revenue because it covered almost all of our salaries. It covered all the salaries that it was allowed to cover. For example, priests' salaries weren't included. Priest salaries are not allowed to be included by this money. So all the salaries that were allowed to be included were covered. Utilities that could be were covered. So that money covered all of that stuff. So while we're on the subject of the annual report, I do want to point out that on the report, it looks like we finished with a pretty hefty deficit. And we did, right? I mean, the numbers don't lie. We ended with a deficit. Our expenses were down compared to previous years. Our revenue was also way down compared to previous years, but it was also because of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, so before March of 2020, we were actually on an uptick. We had seen an increase in collections. We had seen an increase in our mass attendance. We were going up, and then sheltering in place and job security and all those things take into effect, and then we saw a steep decline in our revenue, especially in our Sunday collections. We also weren't able to host our annual Big Red auction, which is our largest fundraiser of the year that benefits our school children. A lot of that stuff got canceled in our Big Red run and those things. This year, our Harvest Bash wasn't able to happen. That's more this fiscal year, but you kind of get the idea. So we saw a huge loss in our revenue, both in Sunday collections and in fundraising. And so that contributed to that deficit. But again, if all things were equal and we didn't have the pandemic, we were on an uptick. We were actually on our way to have a surplus year, which would have been awesome. And in a way, we kind of did if you add in the SBA loan that turns into a grant. Once we've applied for the grant, we've sent in all the paperwork. It's going to be a grant. That's not a loan. We don't owe that money back to the government. So while it looks like we ended in a deficit, all things being equal, we really didn't. Again, it just brings in more. Believe me, my strength is not money. That's why I love the Finance Council and our employees, Donna Borman, who's our bookkeeper, and Margaret Hummel, who's our Director of Communications. They all helped me a great deal in this part of being a pastor, which I am not a fan of. But I'm grateful to all the members of our Finance Council, to Donna Borman, Margaret Hema, and Sarah Lasica, our principal, for all of their help in keeping the ship afloat. I'm very grateful to them. And so in closing, I just want to touch on a few things. First, we're still raising money for our elevator. Our church is just not accessible to everyone. And it gets really hard when we want to open those doors wide to let everyone come in and encounter Jesus Christ. But in order to get to those doors, you got to climb up a lot of stairs that are very difficult on people who have mobility issues, from the smallest sprained ankle to being paralyzed and wheelchair bound. You can't get into our church easily. We need an elevator. Poor Father Joe barely gets up the stairs with his walker, but he tries like hell to get up and into church so that he could pray and encounter Jesus in the Eucharist. And he does it, but it's hard for him. And it's hard for many of our parishioners, not just the elderly, for anyone who has a mobility issue, from a sprained ankle to paralyzed. We need to be able to let everyone into our community. So we're still fundraising for our elevator. We'll be looking at some creative fundraisers coming up to help us raise that money. But if every family in our parish, we have 1,000 families in our parish, if each family gave $300, we would have an elevator, because we have a generous matching gift of $300,000 waiting us if we get up to that number. So please, if you haven't donated to our elevator fund yet, please consider making a donation, especially as the end of the year is coming up and you might be looking for some charitable gift giving. Our elevator is certainly in need of your assistance. We're also asking for you to consider an increase in your Sunday gift of 1 or 2%. As you'll see outlined in the annual report, we have a lot of increased expenses now because of the pandemic. We have to buy hand sanitizer and disinfecting materials. We had to purchase a fogger to disinfect the church and the school every day, and the hand dispensers and batteries for them. And it's all these extra expenses now that we never budgeted for, because who knew we would be in a worldwide pandemic a year ago? Now, looking forward, we can budget for these things, because even with a vaccine, I don't see a lot of these practices going away. And so if you could please find a way in your budget to increase your weekly Sunday gift, 1 or 2% would help us a lot to cover these unexpected expenses in the coming year, and we'll continue to budget for them as we move forward. But that would really help us here to continue keeping people safe and being able to just safely praise the Lord in his holy place, and to open our doors wide to all those who come and worship Christ and encounter the risen Jesus in the Eucharist here with our amazing parish family. And so thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this state of the parish. I am so thrilled to be your pastor. I love you all. Please continue to pray for me. I need all the help that I can get. I'm the biggest sinner here at St. Edward, and the sooner I can grow in holiness, the better I can help you to grow in holiness as well. You are all in my daily prayers. Thanks for all you do to support us. God bless you all. Stay safe and have a very Merry Christmas.